Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we talk about congressional oversight hearings, I can practically feel people reaching for the skip button.
hmm
It sounds so dry. It just sounds like a lot of, men in suits reading rules from a binder.
It often is exactly that.
Usually, yeah. But today we are unpacking a moment that our source material describes as political theater at its absolute peak.
Right.
And I don't mean theater like a well-rehearsed play. I mean, it's more like an improv show where half the cast completely forgot the prompt.
That is a surprisingly accurate description.
So we're looking at a specific clash from a House oversight hearing on January 21st. On the surface, if you just read the docket, it's a procedural debate about subpoenas. Boring, right?
Right.
But once you start to peel back the layers, which is our entire mission today, it turns into a masterclass in cognitive dissonance.
It really does. One of the analysts in our source material actually said the level of contradiction on display would make a psychiatrist quit their job on the spot.
That's the vibe we're dealing with. We aren't just talking about who got subpoenaed. We're talking about the unwritten rules of engagement for Congress.
Yeah.
We've got accusations of hypocrisy. We've got receipts. I mean, literal receipts. We've got past attorneys general being dragged into the mix. And my personal favorite,
The Chipotle order.
a comparison involving a Chipotle order. I didn't see it coming. But look, before we get to the fast food references, we need to set the stage.
Mm-hmm.
What was the actual mission here? What was the spark that, caused this whole explosion between Representative Robert Garcia and Chairman James Comer?
So to understand the fireworks, you really have to look at the fuse. And the fuse here is a contempt of Congress resolution.
Okay, let's pause right there. Contempt of Congress. We hear that phrase thrown around all the time on cable news. What does it actually mean in this context?
It's essentially the nuclear option for a committee. If Congress asks you for something, documents, testimony, whatever, and you refuse to provide it,
You just say no.
you just say no. They can vote to hold you in contempt. It's a referral to the Justice Department for potential criminal prosecution. It's their way of saying, we are not asking anymore. We are enforcing.
Got it. So it's the stick.
It is the stick. And in this case, Chairman James Comer was swinging that stick directly at the Clintons.
The accusation being what? That they just ghosted the committee.
Essentially, yes. Comer's accusation was that the Clintons had defied subpoenas regarding an investigation into the Epstein matter and the dismissal of the Alex Acosta U.S. attorney case.
Okay, so the claim is defiance. We asked for info, you gave us nothing. But looking at the source material, that's not really what happened, is it?
No, and this is where the nuance is so critical. The Clintons did respond.
Right.
They didn't just ignore the email. They provided sworn declarations.
Sworn declarations. Okay, let's unpack that. That's not just some casual email from a lawyer.
No, not at all. A sworn declaration is a written statement signed under penalty of perjury. That means if you lie in those bullet points, you are committing a felony. It is legally binding testimony. They answered the committee's inquiries in writing, signed their names to it, and sent it over.
So they provided answers under threat of jail time if they lied. Why wasn't that enough?
That is the absolute core of the conflict. Chairman Comer argued that these declarations were insufficient. He wasn't satisfied just reading their answers.
He didn't like the format.
He didn't like the format. He described the documents as short bullet points, almost like talking points.
So he just felt it didn't go deep enough.
Exactly. He demanded a live, sit-down interview. He stated on the record that he has, and I'm quoting here, never seen a sit-down interview with Bill Clinton where he's answered questions about his relationships with Epstein or Maxwell.
So his argument is basically, I need to be able to look him in the eye.
Effectively, yes. He argued that a live, in-person interview was the only way to get to the truth, and that providing a written response, even a sworn one, was a form of defiance worthy of a contempt vote.
So Comer's stance is crystal clear. Paper isn't enough. Get in the chair or I'm holding you in contempt. And that is the precise moment Representative Robert Garcia steps in. And he didn't just bring a nay vote.
No, he came prepared.
He brought props. He brought what the internet loves to call receipts.
Little pieces of paper, yeah. Garcia's counter-argument wasn't really about defending the Clintons' specific answers. It was an argument about standards.
Mm-hmm.
He basically said, okay, if this is the rule for the Clintons, why hasn't it been the rule for anyone else?
This brings us to the list. But before we even get to the full list, we have to talk about the one-sentence standard. This part of the transcript honestly just blew my mind. Walk us through the specific example Garcia used.
Well, this was the centerpiece of his whole argument. Garcia held up a letter from former Attorney General Alberto Gonzales.
Okay.
Now, for context, Gonzales was a Republican Attorney General.
Uh,
And he was subpoenaed regarding the exact same investigation timeline, the Epstein matter.
okay, so apples to apples here. Same investigation, same type of request. The Clintons sent bullet points. How long was Gonzalez's sworn declaration?
One sentence.
One sentence, like a really long sentence, a paragraph-long sentence.
No, just one single simple sentence. The letter essentially stated that he had no present memory of any decisions or conversations regarding the Epstein investigation.
That's it.
I don't remember.
Or sign.
Signed, Alberto Gonzales.
And Comer accepted that.
That's the point Garcia just hammered home. Chairman Comer accepted that single sentence as full, total 100% compliance.
Wow.
No contempt vote, no threats, no demand for a sit-down interview to look him in the eye.
And this is where the Chipotle line comes in.
It is. Garcia explicitly pointed out, while holding up the paper, that the Gonzales letter was shorter than a Chipotle order.
Which is funny, but it's also a devastating metric. I mean, you think about it. Can I get a burrito bowl with brown rice, black beans, chicken, and guac?
Yeah.
That is literally longer than the testimony given by a former Attorney General of the United States.
It puts the scale in perspective perfectly. On one hand, you have a one-sentence "I don't remember" from a Republican official, which is accepted without any issue.
Right.
On the other hand, you have a sworn declaration from the Clintons, which Garcia noted was 6 times as long as Gonzales's being rejected as non-compliant and grounds for a contempt vote.
So if you're keeping score at home, I forgot, in one sentence, is legal compliance if you're Gonzales. But detailed bullet points under oath are defiance if you're Clinton.
That is the alleged double standard. It suggests that compliance isn't about what you provide, but who you are. And Garcia didn't just stop with Gonzales. He realized that one example might look like a fluke, so he rattled off a whole roll call of officials who he claims Comer chose not to enforce subpoenas against aggressively.
Who else made the list? I'm assuming these aren't small names.
Oh, no. It was a who's who of the Department of Justice over the last decade. He named Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch, Jeff Sessions, Merrick Garland, and James Comey.
That's a mix of Democrats and Republicans.
It is. Garcia's argument was that the committee has a long history under both parties of letting people slide or accepting written testimony or accepting "I don't recall" as a valid answer. But suddenly, in this specific instance, the goalposts moved across the entire stadium.
How did Comer defend that? I mean, it has to be incredibly awkward sitting there holding a gavel while someone reads a list of people you gave a pass to.
Comer pushed back hard. He didn't just sit there silently. He claimed, and I'm quoting here, "We have complied and enforced 100% of our subpoenas."
100%. That seems mathematically bold given the list we just heard.
It was a very specific defense. He argued that the other officials, like Gonzales, testified under penalty of perjury, that they had no knowledge.
Okay.
In Comer's view, that was a valid answer for them. He accepted that they didn't know anything.
But with the Clintons?
With the Clintons, he claims he knows they have information to hide. So he's saying, I believed Gonzales when he said he didn't know anything, but I don't believe the Clintons, so their written answer isn't enough. I need them in the chair.
Ah, I see. So the standard isn't the document. The standard is the chairman's gut feeling.
Essentially, yes. He's making a subjective judgment call on the credibility of the witness to justify the different procedural path. But that defense started to crumble pretty quickly when Garcia pivoted to the people sitting right there in the room.
The elephant in the committee room? Or really, the elephants?
This was undeniably the most uncomfortable part of the hearing. You could practically feel the tension in the room just shift.
Right.
Garcia pointed out that sitting on that very committee, sitting right next to Chairman Comer, were Congressman Jim Jordan, Congressman Andy Biggs, and Congressman Scott Perry.
And why did he single them out? It wasn't just because they were neighbors on the dais?
No, he singled them out because all 3 of them were issued legally binding subpoenas by the January 6th committee.
Okay.
Regarding their efforts to overturn the 2020 election.
Let's just pause on this because the context is huge. We're not talking about an investigation into some plea deal from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We're talking about subpoenas for a massive investigation into an attack on the Capitol. Did they provide sworn declarations? Did they send a one-sentence letter saying, I forgot?
No.
Yeah.
They completely defied them. They didn't send a letter. They didn't send bullet points. They didn't show up. They simply refused to comply.
Wow. So complete noncompliance, just ghosted.
Complete. And this source material highlights the irony here vividly. You have Jim Jordan, who previously argued that subpoenas violated core legislative privileges when he was the target.
Of course.
He argued that Congress shouldn't be subpoenaing its own members.
Oh.
But now he's sitting on a committee threatening to jail political opponents for defiance. He's voting to hold someone in contempt for providing written answers while he provided no answers to his own subpoena.
So let me just get this straight. The guys who effectively shredded their own subpoenas are now the judges deciding who gets punished for not answering theirs correctly.
That's the cognitive dissonance we started with. That is the moment where the psychiatrist quits. The source describes them sitting there unprosecuted after shredding theirs. It creates this perfect visual representation of the argument. Rules for thee, but not for me.
It's pretty wild when you visualize it. You're threatening contempt charges against a former president for writing bullet points while your colleague sitting next to you just ghosted a congressional subpoena entirely.
Yeah.
It makes the whole rule of law argument feel thin.
It does. It makes it feel conditional. And that leads us to the deeper question. Why? Why reject the sworn testimony in the first place?
Right, because if the Clintons put it in writing under oath, that is legally binding evidence. If they lied in those bullet points, you can prosecute them for perjury. You have them on the hook. So why insist on the live interview?
The source had a theory about this, and they called it content creation.
Content creation. That sounds like something a YouTuber does, not a congressman.
Well, the line is blurring. This is where we move from legal analysis to media strategy. The source suggests that the distinction between accepting Gonzalez's letter and rejecting Clinton's declaration isn't a legal one. It's a political choice driven by media needs.
Because a piece of paper doesn't make good TV.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. Written testimony is actually superior for gathering facts. It's precise, it's thoughtful, it's documented, and it eliminates that I forgot loop you always get in live testimony.
But it's boring.
It's boring. You can't clip a PDF for the evening news. You can't make a viral TikTok out of a sworn affidavit.
But a live interview.
A sit-down interview provides the visual. The source argues the goal is to get a former Democratic president in the chair being grilled by Republicans. That creates what they call Fox News B-roll. It provides the visual conflict.
So the goal isn't the answer to the question. The goal is the video of the question being asked.
Precisely. And by refusing the written testimony, they manufacture a conflict. It's a trap.
How is it a trap?
Well, look at the options. If the witness sends a letter, you say, not good enough. If the witness then refuses to come in for the televised circus, now you have a reason to hold a contempt vote.
So the conflict is the content.
The conflict is the content. The investigation isn't about finding out what happened with Epstein. It's about creating a moment where you can claim the Clintons are hiding something.
It feels like a production studio rather than a legislative body.
It's interesting you say that. The Congressional Research Service, which is the nonpartisan research arm of Congress, basically the nerds who know the rules better than anyone.
Right.
They note that typically Congress obtains info through negotiation and accommodation. It's usually a back-and-forth process.
Like, hey, this answer is a bit vague. Can you clarify?
Right. Can you expand on point 3?
Right.
But in this case, the source argues it's being treated as an ego-driven fishing expedition. There is no accommodation. It's just do it our way, or we vote for contempt.
Fishing for what, though? If they know the Clintons are just going to deny it, what's the catch?
Relevance. The source suggests the motivation is to keep the Clinton name in the headlines for the 2026 cycle. Remember, we are heading toward midterms. It's about keeping the base angry and engaged. And frankly, the source argues it's to distract from a lack of actual legislative accomplishments.
If you aren't passing bills, you better be putting on a good show.
Precisely. If you can't run on your record, you run on your investigations.
Which brings us to the so what question. I mean, political theater is entertaining. We're talking about it right now. I'm sure the clip of Garcia holding that letter got 1 million views.
Oh, yeah.
But does it actually matter if they play these games with subpoenas? Why should the average listener care if Jim Jordan is a hypocrite or if Comer is fishing for content?
It matters immensely. And this is where the analysis in our source material gets really dark. We aren't just talking about hypocrisy. We are talking about the erosion of oversight itself.
How so?
Well, think about the precedent that's being set. The source calls it criminalizing compliance for Democrats while normalizing defiance for themselves. It suggests a two-tier justice system.
The source made a comparison to the average citizen, right? To us.
Yes. Imagine if you or I received a congressional subpoena. Let's say Congress wanted to ask you about your taxes or your business dealings.
Okay.
If we sent back a one-sentence note saying, "I don't recall," or worse, if we just decided not to show up, like those committee members did,
I have a feeling I would not get a gavel and a committee chairmanship.
no. You'd get handcuffs, you'd face criminal contempt charges, massive legal bills, and potential jail time like Steve Bannon or Peter Navarro.
Right.
So when the public sees that the people making the laws don't have to follow them, but then use those same laws to punish their enemies, it just destroys trust in the institution.
It makes the law look like a weapon, not a shield.
Exactly. It tells the public that the law is arbitrary, and the long-term damage happens in the courts. This is the part that keeps legal scholars up at night, because judges watch the news too. And legal scholars warn that when subpoenas become purely partisan tools, when they are clearly just for content creation, judges start to view them differently.
They stop assuming Congress is acting in good faith.
Yes. They start seeing them as political harassment rather than legitimate legislative acts. And if judges stop enforcing subpoenas because they think Congress is just playing games, then the power of oversight evaporates.
So because they are abusing the power now for a TV moment, they might lose that power later when it really matters.
Correct. Imagine a future scenario. Let's say there's a massive corruption scandal or a huge national security failure or corporate malfeasance that wiped out people's savings. Congress needs to investigate. They issue subpoenas.
And the bad guys just say no.
They say no, and the courts say, you know what? We aren't getting involved in your political spats anymore. Congress finds its primary tool. The subpoena's been blunted. It's useless.
There was an analogy in the source, something about a hurricane.
Yes, the source wrote. They're currently ripping the roof off the house and blaming the rain.
That is a powerful image.
It illustrates the idea perfectly. Oversight is the roof. It protects the house of democracy from corruption and malfeasance.
Right.
By weaponizing subpoenas and engaging in this hypocrisy, they are dismantling that roof, plank by plank. So when the corruption of the rain actually pours in, there's no protection left.
It's like they're burning the furniture to stay warm for one night, not realizing they're burning down the entire house.
That's another way to put it.
Yeah.
You can't claim to be championing the rule of law while you are actively dismantling the tools used to enforce it.
It really highlights the difference between an investigation and a production. One seeks facts, the other seeks footage. And in this case, the one sentence versus the list standoff proves that the standard for compliance seems to depend entirely on which team jersey you're wearing.
And that is a dangerous place for a democracy to be. It moves us away from equal justice under law to, justice for my friends, law enforcement for my enemies.
So let's just recap what we've unpacked today. We have a chairman moving to hold the Clintons in contempt for providing written answers, claiming they aren't enough because he needs to see their faces,
while at the same time accepting a one-sentence "I forget" note from a former Republican AG as total compliance.
showing that written testimony is usually enough if you have the right friends. And we have Rep. Garcia countering with a list of officials that just exposes this double standard.
And finally, we have the backdrop of committee members sitting in judgment who themselves defied subpoenas from the January 6th committee.
The ultimate irony, the guys who wouldn't show up are mad that someone else showed up via email.
It's a lot to process. It's funny in a dark way, especially the Chipotle bit, but mostly it just seems dangerous.
It is. While the theatrics are certainly entertaining and they get clicks, the cost is the degradation of Congress's ability to hold the executive branch accountable in the future. If the rules only apply when it's politically convenient, then they aren't rules. They're just weapons.
Well put. And weapons tend to misfire eventually.
That is a sobering thought. We like to think of these hearings as the machinery of government at work, but sometimes it looks more like the machinery is being stripped for parts to sell on eBay.
That's the reality we're looking at.
Before we sign off, we want to leave you with a thought to mull over, something that comes straight from the logic we've discussed today. We usually leave you with a question, and today's is a big one.
Right. We've talked about how this behavior erodes the court's willingness to enforce subpoenas. So here's the question we want you to think about. If the subpoena power is weaponized until the courts stop enforcing it entirely, what tools left for the public to actually find the truth when it really matters?
If the roof is gone, what do we do when the rain really starts to fall? Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Take care.